pummeled the ball down to the ground, and it flew right past my arm, and I felt the soft leather skin the side of my arm. Briefly. The next thing I knew, I heard the judge go, "Out!" And I looked, and it had landed out of bounds. And I had touched it, but the judge had not seen it. And on the other side of the net, a ruckus broke out. He touched it, he touched it. Don't talk to him. Now, I went to a Christian school, and Woodcrest was a Christian school, and so, of course, they expected me to be honest. It's a sport. If the judge doesn't see it, it didn't exist. And so I just simply went my way. I turned around, I huddled up with my team. I was like, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. I came back, and I got down on ready to take the next ball or whatever. And they're all pointing at me, and they're saying to the judge, ask him, ask him. And I'm zoned out into space with a poker face on my... That's the only match we ever beat Woodcrest in any sport, my whole college, my whole high school career, and it was largely due to my pleading the fifth, so to speak, and not incriminating myself. Do I feel guilty about that today? Not really. But Jesus is not like that. He doesn't miss a trick. He doesn't miss a thing. He gets every wrong, and he judges it. You and I don't know the wrong that's happening here in this moment, but I'm going to show it to you. This here is my whiteboard. Now I'm going to diagram for you the stuff that you don't know. If you were here last year, I actually did some of this last year on Palm Sunday, just because this is so important to me. But I want to show you what we're talking about with the temple. This is the temple court. The temple itself is right here. And inside the temple, there is a little box room called the holiest place, or the Holy of Holies. And immediately outside of the temple, there's another little wall area. And there are steps that lead up to it. And then also there's this other little half wall in here with columns. Okay? There you go, something like that. This area out here, if you're diagramming this, by the way, do a better job than me if you're drawing it on your note sheet. This area out here is called the court of the Gentiles. This area here is the court of the men. This tiny little area with all the columns is the court of the women. Yes, I know, I don't have time to talk about it today. And then this here is the temple itself. And then, of course, the Holy of Holies there. Where do you think they were selling and doing the money changing and all of that? All out here. All out here. If you're going to have hundreds and hundreds of sheep, you can't go into the court of the women. You're not going to go into the court of the men. After all, they're Jews. We would not want to disrupt their worship. Here's the altar. There's the basin for washing. They filled this area out here. Jesus comes in and he sees this area filled up with a cacophony of bleating sheep and cooing doves and people exchanging money and maybe ripping people off as well. But it's filled, and yet that's the court of the Gentiles. And what you and I don't see is that when Jesus enters that and he clears it out, he says, my Father's house will be a house of prayer. But what we don't see is the Old Testament passage that leads into it. It's printed on your note sheet there. It's Isaiah chapter 56, verses 6 through 8. Look at this. It says, and foreigners who bind themselves to the Lord to serve him, to love the name of the Lord and to worship him, all who keep the Sabbath without desecrating it and who hold fast to my covenant, these I will bring to my holy mountain and give them joy in my house of prayer. Their burnt offerings and sacrifices will be accepted on my altar, for my house will be called a house of prayer for all nations. The sovereign Lord declares, he who gathers the exiles of Israel, I will gather still others to them, besides those already gathered. The whole point of the temple was that it would be a place where people could gather from all the nations. The reason God did this is so that, yes, there would be this sense of hierarchy, of importance, so that we would understand that God is way above all of us. But he designed a Gentile court to say everybody's welcome here. Everybody can come and worship God and experience his presence here. Everybody is welcome. And Jesus comes in, and they weren't. They were being shut out because all this sacrifice stuff that's going on in there is for the Jews who were coming to buy sacrificial animals. And the whole thing was being clogged. And the people who wanted to worship God could not get in. Jesus says, I'm done with this place. We're going to clean it up today. We're going to teach today. We're going to heal people today. But that's it. This mountain is going to be thrown down. This holy mountain is going to be thrown down. And so we come to the third thing about Jesus and the judgment of God. It's that the judgment of God heals the broken. I'll move my thing here in just a minute. The judgment of God heals the broken. The Gentiles were the oppressed. They were basically the slaves. And Jesus says, I want to lift you up. See, the job of the judge is to right the wrongs. And that's what Jesus is doing here. But there's a problem. Jesus wants to judge the wicked. And he wants to heal the broken. And God's great dilemma is that you and I are both. You and I are both the wicked and the broken. So what is he going to do? A perfect judge isn't going to miss anything. A perfect judge, a righteous judge, is going to right the wrongs. And you and I have done wrong. And he needs to right that wrong. He needs to judge that wrong. He needs to cast out that wrong. He needs